Well, I'm going to go ahead and kick us off. It's a little bit after 6:45, 6:48 now. So hello, everybody, and welcome to our June meeting. It's great to see everybody, and we're going to have a really good evening tonight. I'm Tracey Rice. I'm president of the club, and we have several other of our board members here on the call tonight. Ludwig Keck, you can see down in the the bottom of my screen. David Dunnigan, Mario Lombardi, Richard Phillips, Brian Walton. I don't see Stephanie yet, Stephanie Artavia. She may be joining us shortly. And Mario. And we work really hard to plan excellent and relevant programming for everybody. And I think that you'll agree our main speaker tonight will deliver on that high bar that we've set for ourselves. We're going to start by welcoming our guests and new members. And then we're going to hear from everybody who submitted a raw edit for our monthly theme. And that's going to be in a show and tell format. So hopefully if you submitted a photo, you're going to be here on the call to talk about it. And I see somebody I know who did, who isn't. I'm going to be texting him in a moment. And then we're going to hear the presentation from our main speaker this evening. And Tracey, you can see her up there, and I like her name a lot. And she spells it right, so that's good. So we'll be hearing a lot more about her in a few minutes. Just as in terms of club news, we're going to continue to do Zoom for our July meeting. And then beginning with our August meeting, we plan to be back in person. And we're trying to find a place to meet in Peachtree Corners. But if not, we'll be back at the Pinckneyville Community Center, and they are available for us to meet there again. We plan to continue live streaming the meeting and also recording them for our YouTube channel if we can get the technology to work for us. We found that being on Zoom all these months has really allowed us to expand our reach, and people who can't get to our meetings otherwise find this very convenient. So we want to kind of combine the best of both worlds. But it would be really nice. Some of you that are new members, I've never actually met in person. And that will be a really nice thing to just be able to do the little chit chat we do ahead of time and after the meetings. So that's it for news. Well, I'll give a little bit more news at the very end, but for now, I'm going to turn it over to Richard Phillips. He's our membership and hospitality chair. And I know he's frantically trying to take attendance. And so we're testing his multitasking abilities. Are you ready to welcome our new members, Richard, or do I need to give you another second?
Well, we'll get back to getting the attendance in just a minute. I certainly see two of our newest members on here, and I wanted to give them an opportunity to introduce themselves. I got this funny call on my phone, and it was from a guy that said, "Hey, can you help me out, take some pictures or whatever?" And I called him back maybe a week later, and I apologized for that because I was going, this is unusual. So the guy that gave me that call is Dale Sellers, and he was so interested in finding how he could improve his photography. And I said, well, I don't think there's a better way than to come and look and see what we're doing. So Dale, go ahead and introduce yourself and what you're looking for.
Oh, thank you. I'm retired and I enjoy traveling, and my pictures, I'd like when we travel to improve them and over what they've been. And so that's kind of where I am. I'm a novice, and but when I travel, I'd like to get better pictures of our trips that we make.
So I offered to provide some of my input directly. And of course, you'll see tonight, Dale, one of the other ways that we do that is that you submit them to the group. And if you have good enough stamina, you can get through all the criticism that goes on. and you'll see that as we get in here. I see Anna, but Anna, I've not heard you introduce yourself before. Would you do that, please?
Well, I live in River Station, and I'm really just a beginner. I use my cell phone. I've been I was waiting for my cam web thing just to get hooked up. And I just do it for fun. I have 5 grandchildren. So usually on Thursdays, believe it or not, I'm at avid tennis player and a golfer. So since we got rained out tonight, I'm very fortunate to be on.
Great.
Yeah, there was a swim team
And-
that was also.
Yeah, and I'm a pet sitter, so I have lots of variety of pets that you would not believe. All but snakes. I do not do
Uh-huh.
snakes. So, sorry, I had to have a neighbor come over and take care of a snake that was in my driveway. So anyways, but I just want to just have fun and enjoy and meet a lot of wonderful people in photography.
Well, you came to the right place.
Yeah.
Jack, I'm looking at you because I'm pretty sure last time we held our meeting, you were on mute.
Yes, I was.
And couldn't introduce yourself. So how about doing that?
Okay, you want me to introduce myself again?
No. I said Jack. I'm sorry.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay,
hey.
that's okay.
Hey, am I
All
back?
yours,
on?
Jack, I'm done.
Okay, no problem at all. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we
Is
can.
that- Yeah, okay, good. Yeah, so yeah, I am a just a amateur photographer looking at getting some more knowledge about photography. I do a lot of traveling, and I've been active on certain groups like Flickr, and it's nice to be on things like that, but it's also good to be part of a group, I think. Yeah. Yep. So I've lived here in Georgia for about 30 years, and I live in Wellington Lake subdivision, and I look forward to hanging out with you guys.
Yeah, good.
Anna, quickly, what your last name, please?
Oh, Nisio, it's Polish.
Okay, gotcha. Now I know where to look.
Yeah, I was on a few times, and like I said, usually on Thursdays I have tennis or golf or something, but I'm so happy it's raining. Sorry to say that, but we needed it anyways.
I have a granddaughter who's not happy about it because the swim team is having issues with the lightning.
Oh, yeah, right.
Well, that's what
Raining
I
all
have.
week.
That's what I have, Tracy. I'm pretty sure.
Okay, we'll move along then to Brian Walton, and he's going to kick off our raw edit show and tell.
So effectively you have these lined up where it introduces who made the edit and let you talk if it's your edit for a couple minutes and maybe give us either some insight as to techniques you used, challenges you came across, anything you want to share about sort of the editing process. To get it started, for those that did not download or participate, this was the raw photo that everyone started with. So you get kind of the idea of what came out of the camera. And then each individual took their artistic license or liberty and edited this image to their taste. And the first one was done by Alfonso. So Alfonso, take it away.
Yeah, this is what we call a plain vanilla black and white. There are no special effects here. I just work in the eyes a little bit and in the hair and increase the contrast from the black and white original file that I got from Brian's picture. And as I say, nothing special. I just saw that it was a nice image to convert to black and white. And that's it.
Thanks, Alfonso.
It's a nice picture, Brian.
And the next one is by Babs.
So I'm still learning to edit. So Dave assisted me with this, but we did sharpen the eyes a little bit and we cropped it square. And then just cleaned up just a little bit of a blemish, some on the face a little bit, and did it in Photoshop.
The entire edit was in Photoshop?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well done.
Very
Thank you,
good.
sir.
Same here, Brian, all in Photoshop for me.
Bruce Halliburton is, he asked me for the link to the meeting. He couldn't find it. And so just skip him and we'll come back.
All right. We got Dave Eagleman next.
Okay, for this one, obviously some black and white with just bringing the color of her eyes out a little stronger. Cleaned up some blemishes, got rid of some stray hairs, filled in the color in her lips, even though it's black and white some, and just cropped it real tight.
Yep, nice.
What made you decide to do that with the color of the eyes?
Sometimes if the colors that I'm looking at don't really work for me, as far as I'm not a big people person when it comes to photography. I think black and white can forgive a lot of sins. And but I think it needed something to pop. Her eyes were very sharp and with some good color. And I thought that it would be a shame to lose that. And it was all done in Photoshop.
Okay. And David Schilling.
Yeah, I did a lot of things to this. Basically, I made her eyes bigger, her mouth bigger. I used a plug-in to do the complexion on her face, but then I liked the cartoon effect, so I went ahead and did a cartoon effect. And one of the things that I didn't like was her teeth in the cartoon effect, so I went ahead and masked that out. But I added a little flair to her thumbnail there. I don't know if you see that, just a
Yeah.
little something to add to it. So I just thought the polish was pretty. And oh yeah, I whitened her eyes and her teeth as well. And also I reduced the size of her nose a little bit. So, using Photoshop, you can do liquefy and you can make the eyes bigger, you can make the mouth bigger, you can change all kinds of things with the liquefy. And then I used a stylized paint on type effect. But to get the cartoon effect, I used poster edges in the filters. And yeah, it was all done in Photoshop.
Okay.
Very
Nice
creative.
job.
Very
Yeah,
cool.
love it.
And Ludwig.
I guess I should unmute first. I'm not the only one who went black and white, but I decided to go more to a Matahari look in black and white, very close in. Notice that, well, maybe I should say, I work in Paint Shop Pro, and for the black and white, I use Silver Effects by Nick. So first I converted the image to a color close-up with the eyes sharp, and I blurred out much of the rest of the face. I tried to defreckle the young lady as much as possible, so it would be a smooth, non-distracting image, as you can see. And I put extra emphasis and sharpening on the eyes. And I used Silver Effects for the black and white work. I'll tell you more about that about a month from now.
Nice.
Tease.
So we have Bruce, if that was, go ahead, Brian. Then Bruce is here. So whenever you get done, you can back up to his.
Okay, sounds good. So this was my edit. I'm someone who, the red hair is obviously unusual, and really bring that out obviously can be a little distracting in terms of, pulling attention from the eyes and whatnot. But my crop is fairly similar to Babs. I think hers was more natural looking than mine is from like a color and editing standpoint. I went a little bit over the top in terms of saturation of things, and pulling out the highlights and whatnot, both in the eyes and on the side of the hair. I think freckles are interesting. So I kept all that stuff in for the most part, except for, a few little blemishes that weren't necessarily freckles. They were more just like small skin blemishes. So got rid of that, but pulled it in a little bit tighter to get the emphasis on the eyes, tried to keep the eyes about in the rule of thirds. And I used Capture One for the raw processing, and then I brought it into Affinity Photo for the I'll say a little more detail things. One thing I did notice on the original image that not everyone adjusted, I would say, is this area in here. She had a pretty heavy kind of shadow underneath the nose, so I lightened that up a little bit to try to get rid of it. I found it a little bit distracting in the original image, but that was kind of one of the main sort of I'll say pixel editing type of adjustments that I made on that. But that was my edit, and we'll go back to Bruce here. There we go.
I finally showed up. I left am I coming across an audio?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, okay, good. I've got headphones on. I left the image pretty much alone. I brought it into Lightroom and just did an automatic adjustment, the basic automatic, and I thought it looked very nice the way it was. It's a high key picture, and I thought about the freckles. I left them alone. I thought we'll just let her be that way. It looked a little bit yellow to me, so I went into Photoshop and did some very traditional hue sat adjustment, knocked down the blue a little bit. I had some notes, but I can't find them. I made some other minor tweaks to the other RBG channels, but the big one was yellow. I softened the, can you see my pointer? Anyway, under her, it would be her left eye. It's a little bit shiny. So I did some patching on that, very light. I do what I call a 50% layer. I make a copy of it, but only 50% opacity, and then patch. Usually patching is too much, but at 50%, you get a taste of it. So it's not as sparkly. I didn't mind that shadow under her nose. I left that alone. And otherwise, it was just pretty much natural. She had some glare on her thumbnail that we can see. The thing that I objected to most was that hand hanging over her eyes like tentacles. And that was my final recommendation, was to reshoot. Which was not part of that wasn't part of what the assignment was, but I heard that a lot when I was in school. Okay, but let's lose those blurry fingers because they're so much closer than her eyeball. But also, this was a very big file. My camera does not produce, doesn't have as many pixels as this, so it was, gosh, I think it was almost 20 inches tall, and I'm used to something that's 14. So that was a little bit. The other thing I did, again, with traditional retouching for portraiture, was I reduced the blood vessels apparent blood vessels in her sclera. I had an instructor that was just really hard on that, and they are colored a little bit in the original, so you put a black and white on that, maybe 20%, and it'll change it quite a lot. Take away any of it'll make it a more white color. And I think finally, the other thing I was taught was to hit those irises to make them a little more contrasty, maybe just a little bit brighter, not a heavy treatment. So I was into micro details, I guess you could say, except for the freckles. I just left all those alone. It was a fun exercise. I thought it was really a pretty good picture to start with. I would just redo that hand. I love that hand. it's just a little too strong for me. And I didn't even think about cropping it like many of you did. I thought that was a good thing that a lot of people did. That didn't even enter my head. I just left it the way it was.
Yeah, it's an interesting comment about the hand being there and the fact that like that's one reason why I cropped it was to get the framing there. And you can see, a few of us did kind of the same thing. Ludwig obviously took it even to more extreme, just got rid of it. But you see here where it's there, but it's so out of focus that you end up, sort of pulling into the eye. And you don't see the rest of the, bulk of the hand by pulling in close. But yeah, that was definitely an observation I made as well, and one of the reasons why I chose to kind of pull in. The other one was just going to kind of show everybody's edits here, kind of side by side, to show the differences, just all in one view here for a second. That's it.
Great.
Yeah.
Very creative.
Variety.
Nice exercise.
We'll do these again. We've done 2 of these so far. The first one we did was a landscape, you'll remember, with the lighthouse. And then this one was a portrait. If you have ideas of a subject matter or anything related to this idea of editing a raw photo, could you put that in the chat for us? And then give us some fodder for thinking of what to do next. And so that was great. Thanks to everybody who participated and entered one in.
Let me just say one thing. I really do enjoy that type of thing where you give somebody a chance to edit something. I think that's a really good way to test your creative skills. So I really did enjoy doing those 2 raw file edits and coming up with something creative. It's good. I love it.
Yeah.
A lot of fun.
Cool. Well, think of if there's any other subject matter you'd like us to do. I mean, we could do another landscape, just something that's not water, it could be flowers or whatever. If we can't come up with anything, I'm sure Brian will come up with something. But if you have any ideas, I'm sure he'd appreciate some creative juices flowing. All right, now drum roll, please. Mario Lombardi, could you please introduce our guest speaker for tonight?
I shall. Hi, everybody. Yes, rough. We are so fortunate tonight to have Tracey Luttgens presenting to us tonight. She has an extensive photography background and history. And before she gets started, I'd like to share just a little bit of her extensive story with you. Tracey is a professional photographer specializing in pet photography. She studied photography at the College of DuPage outside of Chicago. She began working as a professional photographer in 2000 and was primarily an infant, child, and family portrait photographer from 2001 to 2011. And during that time, she used, interestingly, a medium format camera, developing film in-house, and also transitioned into digital photography during this time period. So she's got experience with medium format cameras. Tracey says, in addition to her love of the arts, she's always had a passion for animals, whether they have fur, scales, or feathers. And if you see her website or Instagram account, you know how true that is. And if you've not seen her work, we're going to post it on the website. We're going to post her website and Instagram account information in the chat section right here. So look for it. We'll post it. To further her understanding of animal behavior and assist in photography of dogs, she became a certified dog trainer in 2013, which helps her in her photography of her pet clients immensely. In 2015, she opened her studio Heart Spot Portraits, which is a boutique studio specializing in pet photography. Tracey has been a contributing photographer for the Atlanta Pet Magazine, is a member of the PPA, Professional Photographers of America, is currently up for election to be on the PPA Council, and is the executive director of GPPA, the Georgia Professional Photographers Association, where she works with the board and other professional photographers, creating social networking events, assisting fellow photographers in their businesses, and strengthening our Georgia photography community. So there's no doubt she's an overachiever and a workaholic, just like our own Tracey Rice. So we're happy to welcome you, Tracey, and we're looking forward to hearing from you tonight. So welcome, Tracey.
Thank you. Thank you. So let me share my screen.
And everybody, I'm going to mute everyone just so we can keep any
Mute my
distractions.
puppy.
But if you have a question, you can put it in the chat, or you can unmute yourself and interrupt and ask. Either way, Tracey, be happy to take questions as she goes along.
Let me just make sure that I have my chat window open. Okay. So without further ado, Mario, thank you for the wonderful, wonderful introduction.
Absolutely.
So today I am going to talk to you about tips and tricks for better pet portraits. The picture up there in the top, if you believe it or not, those are all rescue puppies. They actually came in for a rescue session. So we are going to cover preparation and safety, working with an assistant, the session itself, and then more questions and answers. But yes, if you do have any questions, just go ahead and type them into the chat. So Mario already introduced me, so all of these points. One fun fact, when we were coming up with names for my studio, we decided to name it after our Dalmatian. My logo and the name is for that heart spot that's on her chest. Yes, I've been a member of PPA and GPPA for many years. And like your camera club, it is awesome to have a network of people who you can connect with. And currently the director for GPPA. If anybody is interested in doing even more with photography, you are welcome to come and attend one of our groups as well. And then lastly, I am a member of what's called Heart Speak International. It's a group very dear to my heart. They are a company, an organization who pairs artists, not just photographers, with rescue groups and humane societies. And their motto is that no shelter animal go unseen. So some of the pictures in my presentation will be from rescue animals. Some are my puppy, who is my great model. And then a lot are just clients. So without further ado. Now, I do photograph many animals, not just dogs and cats, but today's presentation will be mainly on dogs and cats because that is the majority of what people are going to come and bring in for you to photograph and what most of us have in our homes. So preparation and safety. Before I go into any session, I either have a consultation on the phone with my client or in person, and they fill out a huge questionnaire. And the questionnaire is very important. I cover things like if the pet has any fear issues or aggression issues, because you want to know those kind of things when you're going into working with any type of animal. Another big one is allergies. I use small training treats, and you want to make sure that anything that you're going to give, you won't have some type of allergic reaction. You want to make sure that the parent is okay with what you're using. I'll actually ask them to bring things if there's anything special that they know is really going to help within the session. And another one is health issues. I work with animals who are deaf. I work with animals who are blind. I've worked with animals with arthritis. So sometimes touching them, moving them, I don't do a lot of that generally anyway, because you don't want to be trying to force something. But those are all good things to know when you're going into a session. Training. Does this animal know basic commands? Sit, down, stay, watch me are some of the ones that I talk with the owners about. But to get good photos, an animal does not need to have any type of training. Again, I work with many rescue animals, which they come in, sometimes we don't even know what they know. But I have never, in the 9 years I've been doing this, not gotten pictures of an animal. Another one of my main things is the reasons that we're taking the portraits. Are we doing these for an end of life session? Is this a new puppy? Do we have a family picture coming in? And also, why are we going to be using the images that we're taking? Lastly, home and style and colors within the home. That's going to help you to match what you're taking to where they're going to put that. Also, what helps with some color harmony. I mean, for the most part, somebody's not going to put a bright green grass picture on a wall that looks very, very traditional. Okay. One small thing, I do have a contract whenever I work with my clients, and also insurance is very important. When I started my pet photography business, I did not realize some of the things that I was going to have to think about. Pets are actually considered property. So if something happens, you want to make sure that you at least have that liability coverage, just in case someone gets bit, just in case an animal gets loose. Just small things to think about that wouldn't regularly cross somebody's mind when they're taking pictures of people. Before you go into the session, it's always good to know characteristics about the breed or animal that you're taking pictures of. A Basset Hound's level of energy is going to be very, very different than a Chihuahua or a Black Lab. And then lastly, the location where you're going to have your session. I'm very lucky to have a studio space, so people come to me for the most part. But if you're going to be going to somebody's house or a park, for instance, you want to make sure that you've actually looked at the space prior to them coming and meeting you there, or if it's somebody's home, see if you can go and do your consultation there, because that's going to give you an idea of what you're going to be taking pictures against. If you're at a park, you want to make sure that you don't have to have a permit or pay any fees to actually be there, and make sure that pets are allowed in the area that you want to go. Lighting, dogs, cats, animals of different colors, you're going to have different lighting needs. A darker animal, of course, is going to absorb more light, so you're going to need a little bit more light. And then lastly, distractions. If you're going to be somewhere, again, a park, you want to make sure that you don't have other dogs, people, cars, squirrels, all kinds of crazy stuff that can distract your subject and not make you get that image. The other thing that I really, really like to do is have that consultation before we actually take any pictures. And that can be the same day, or it can be beforehand. But I call this the meet and treat session. And at this point, you're really just letting usually dog explore the space, sniff around, get to know what's going on, where you're going to be. You don't want it to feel like it's at the vet's office. And this lets you talk with the owner, and the dog will be sniffing around. It'll usually come up to you and say, "Hey, how are you?" The dog, once it gets used to you and wants to be friends, then you can kind of give it a little attention, but you don't want to ever get right down into its face. You don't want to reach over. Usually most dogs like to be scratched usually on the side of the neck first, and that's something more from dog training experience. Another thing, if a dog is sniffing something, you don't want to just go and scratch it on the butt. They tend to whip around really quick and be a little nervous. And I have a lot of people who want to try and push them into a sit right away. When I'm doing that, I usually just use a treat and get them into the sit. I don't usually ever push down on them. Avoid sudden movements. That's in general, but truly with small animals, you want to move very slowly. And again, eye contact. Nobody likes to be stared at, especially dogs and cats. They will automatically look away from you, and that's just a stress relief. While I'm doing this and them getting to know me, I'm usually popping my lights. I'm letting them sniff the camera so they know everything is is fun. It's not going to hurt them. When I'm popping the lights, I am looking for a reaction to see if they have any sensitivity to the lights. Some dogs who have thunder and lightning issues might react a little bit. But again, for the most part, I've never had a dog who I wasn't able to use my strobes with. And then with a water dish, you can always offer dogs water, but you don't want to just leave it sitting. You don't want them drinking constantly, because then they're going to have to go outside and go to the bathroom, or they're going to step in the water dish, or possibly you're going to kick the water dish as you're kind of moving around. So have it close by, but just don't let it sit there. David was asking about my black cat image. That was my cat, and I took that for an image competition. Okay. Overall, again, you want to have fun during this meet and greet part. Everybody should have a good time. Small thing, accidents do happen. Just be prepared. I have a cabinet right next to me that has all of these things on it, just so that I can grab something and clean up if we do have an accident. And one of the things that I have noticed is the pet parents always get so nervous and upset. They're like, oh my goodness, I didn't mean for that to happen. When you're working with pets and babies, them peeing on something is almost inevitable. So you just kind of clean it up and move on. The hand sanitizer, even before COVID, I always had hand sanitizer close by. I do work with reptiles occasionally, and they can have different bacteria, dogs licking you. I keep my studio very clean because I do also work with people, and you just want to make sure that you clean up right away so that you don't have dogs that smell another dog being in there, and it just keeps everything very nice and tidy. Okay, so you can type this in the chat. What do all of these dogs have in common? Don't hear anybody, don't see anybody. All of these dogs are showing signs of stress. When a dog is stressed, they automatically go into what we call stress relief signals, and they'll start to pant, they'll cower, they'll tuck their tail, they'll get what's called whale eye, where you see the whites all around their eyes. To calm themselves down, they will start yawning and turning their head away. They'll do lip licking, you'll get excessive shedding, and you may see them start to tremble and shake. Now, these are all signs of just a dog in stress. If you get to a dog who is barking or lunging, that's showing aggression, and we try to tend to not let them ever get to that point. But if they do, those are usually ones that you don't want to just continue your session. Same thing with cats. You will see cats exhibit stress by hissing, growling, chirping sounds. They cower, they pant, they flick their tail, they will scratch at you. They'll hold their whiskers really tight. And the cats up at the top, those 5, those are all my children. So I do torture them every now and then and make them pose together. So they are more or less bored and just frustrated with me. They're not so much stressed. Okay. When you have animals who are stressed, it's time to just take a break. It's okay to stop for a minute, try something else, let them shake it off. I mean, you'll notice a lot of times a dog will shake a little bit and then it's ready to go back to participating. Within your pet sessions, you want to make sure that you are always calm and patient. There's a lot of times you just take a deep breath and it calms you down and it calms your client down. You know that your pets pick up on your emotions. So if the pet parent is upset or frustrated, their pet is going to pick up on that. I always say whenever anybody comes in, just relax, we're going to have fun today. This is going to be good for all of us. Okay, so that was really kind of my little bit about pre-session and safety. So we're going to kind of go into working with a pet wrangler or assistant. Once you get a whole bunch of puppies in a studio, it just goes a little bit crazy. And right there, I think during this session, I had 3 or 4 people in there. The role of your assistant, first off, they are going to be a mind reader. My husband, again, is my assistant. He knows usually the poses that I'm going to do. He knows where my pets need to be positioned. He knows lighting things that I'm working on. Tracy had said, pet parents to me is a better name than owner. Most of my clients, these are their fur babies, or these are their kids. So they don't consider themselves an owner. They consider themselves a parent. And Mario, a typical session usually is between a half an hour to an hour, depending on what we're trying to get. But the assistant also helps me keep the collar and leash where I need it to be. They keep the pets safely. If I have a small animal and they're not wearing a leash or a collar, I usually use a table, so they'll help keep them in one place and not fall. The picture that you see here with the lab, that blur, that is my husband throwing a treat at me. So we get expressions many, many different ways. I have been hit in the head with a tennis ball, with treats, with puppies flying at me. And then they also help provide positive encouragement. A lot of times I'm a little bit further back, so they can pet the dog in between and just say that they're doing great. And lastly, your assistant helps you with your lights and your props. Sometimes you just need something moved a little bit over. So it's great to have other hands when you're working with pets, because a lot of times they don't understand that you need them to sit still and just look at the camera like people do. So a little bit about editing, since you guys were talking about editing. Back to that beginning slide. When you're holding a dog's leash, it's better to hold it straight up in the air versus it going across their body. It makes it so much easier when you go to edit out later. You don't have to end up cloning fur and trying to recreate like maybe part of a tail or part of a back. Same thing if you have multiple pets. You want to hide leashes as much as possible. You can see from the top image all of the crazy leashes that I had to edit out, as well as the one dog's head that we needed to give him a whole entire head. But leashes going more towards the back instead of on just going everywhere. And that can be difficult when you do have multiple animals. And yes, Tracy, it is harder with cats than it is with dogs. And I'm actually going to show some pictures of working with cats. So, quick note on collars. Most collars look really, really pretty on the side that doesn't have the buckle. So you want to turn the buckle more towards the back if they want to leave the collar on. And then you also don't have tags hanging right down in front that you have to edit out. And tags will leave crazy shadows on the front of the chest. The picture of the dog in the corner, you can see that the collar is actually being pulled away from the neck. So if you edit out the leash, you're going to have this weird gap. So you want to make sure little things like that, you're not pulling too hard or letting them pull against you so that you have weird liquefy that you'll need to do in your editing. And then harnesses are their own beast. I do have clients who their dogs have breathing issues so that they come in harnesses. This image was actually taken at a pet event. So I do events where I am in a 10 by 10 tent on location. So we do have to make sure that we're being safe and we have leashes and harnesses on all the time. So I've gotten very good at taking them out, but the smaller the harness, the better. Here's that picture. So that harness was much easier to Photoshop out than the top harness. And again, when you're working with puppies, it is good to have multiple hands because they don't want to stay where you put them. Sometimes it looks like we made it done easily, but no, there's puppies going everywhere. Any questions on working with an assistant? Okay, so what I'm going to go into now is a session that I did for a rescue dog named Rufus. You'll actually get a little video of me working behind the scenes. So Rufus had just been picked up by the foster a couple days before. So we didn't get to have a meet and greet beforehand, but again, I've worked with the rescuer, so she knew me and she knows what to do. But you're going to see me actually working with Rufus for the first time.
What does he go by most? Call him Rufus, because that was his name. He's an undershredder. So okay. Rufus is the name he knows. Roscoe's name he's learning. Okay. Rufus did. Oh my gosh, that was like perfect.
Okay. And then we switched scenes, and this was taken just a couple seconds later.
Just bites it. Yeah, good boy.
And you did get to hear me making crazy noises.
Yeah. I know that one was good, but that one was good boy. Stay. That was it. Good boy. Jump on down.
Tracey, to answer your question, my white is actually vinyl. So if a pet has an accident on it, I just wipe it right off. I don't have to worry. Same thing with floors. Yeah, I made sure that everything is pretty much pet friendly. And here was that picture that I got of Rufus. I know it looked like he was going absolutely crazy, but it only takes a split second. Technical info, I use a Canon 5D Mark III, and my go-to is my 24-105, especially working in the studio. I know a lot of pet photographers do a 70 to 200 outside, but again, that's way too close if I'm working in the studio. And I'm usually only about a foot away from my subject. And I do shoot in RAW most of the time. If I'm doing one dog, it's usually f6, 100 ISO, 2 or more, usually f7. Let's see. Tracey, no, my vinyl is non-glare, so you won't see a glare usually. Sometimes I'll catch some of it in the eyes, but I don't get any glare on my background. And yes, working with an assistant is much easier than working with a pet parent, because then I don't have to teach them all of my little tricks about holding the leash. And sometimes if the pet parent is to the side, the pet is always going to be wanting to look at them and not at me, versus if it's a stranger. And then that way the parent can also enjoy the session instead of feeling like they have to work. Focus for animals, just like people, the eyes are what it's all about. The eyes are the window to the soul. You want to make sure that they are in focus. And also with pets, you want to make sure you've got good catch lights. Because of the shape of a lot of animal eyes, sometimes that's hard to get it in both eyes. So I have had to sometimes clone in a little bit of a catch light so you don't have what's called dead eye. And then a rule of thumb for animals is getting the tip of the nose to the tip of the ears, in focus. Richard, because I'm shooting studio, the f6 100 and I shoot at 160. And again, using the strobe, it's gonna freeze everything. Now, if I'm outside, I shoot for highlights and shadows. In studio, I'm shooting with 2 to 4 lights, and I do use the photogenic strobes. Outdoors, I'll meter for my natural light, and then I use a Godox 600, and I will use that as a fill light outside. Sometimes I'll just use a reflector. I am not what most would say I'm not a natural light photographer. I like filling in and really showing a lot of those colors. I'm very vibrant. You'll kind of see that in most of my photos. And then because animals come in so many colors and patterns and their fur grows in all different directions, lighting is kind of essential to make sure that you're seeing these things. You don't want to blow them out too much. Dark dogs, you don't want it to become all blotchy. So knowing how to light these correctly, and also once you start going into editing, you can't always take fur from one section and move it to another because the way that it's going to fall. So making sure that you have those shots done correctly the first time is kind of key. And in most typical sessions, you have 30 to 40 minutes max before you kind of lose the attention of your animals completely. It's very much like working with a 2-year-old. This is a shot of the inside of my studio. So we're on 5 acres, so I have inside and outside capabilities, and I can do that in one session. But my studio is 20 by 19, and I can shoot on 2 different walls. When I knew I was going to be working with animals, I made sure that all of my lights were ceiling mounted, so I don't have any cords, any light stands, anything that anybody can trip over. Same thing, tile floor and vinyl backgrounds. Pretty much nothing can be damaged. I say that, and just last week I was taking a picture of a pit bull puppy who was sitting on top of one of my ottomans, and he jumped off and pushed the ottoman leg right through the back of my vinyl background. So things can happen, but overall it's easy to fix that or to get another one. But that just kind of gives you what I'm shooting at. Some of the things that really help when you're doing pet photography, I use a variety of chairs, couches, benches. If you are looking for certain kind of props for dogs, think about the size. A lab or a golden retriever is not going to fit comfortably on some of the couches that humans sit on just because of how wide they are. So those are things I look at. I do also use a variety of ottomans and bean bags because they're a little bit softer and it lets the dog get a little bit more comfortable. Cats especially love to be in a bean bag because that kind of comforts them. Same thing with baskets and containers. If you give a cat something that it can feel secure in, you're more likely going to get a great picture of them. They want to cuddle up in there. And then a variety of blankets and backdrops. I do have like a baby poser style. I don't know if many of you are familiar with that, but it's an extra large bean bag. And then I have PVC pipe that actually I can attach smaller blankets to. So I can be in a very small space and be really close to kittens and puppies and smaller dogs so that they don't feel like they're in this huge expansive space. And that kind of gets us into different expressions. This is my toy arsenal. I have a box of toys that I kind of keep close to me at all times. And we do animal sounds. I have a predator call up there, a squirrel call. I sneeze, I make crazy noises. If you have squeakers, you want to have a variety of them because dogs get bored with a single sound very, very quickly. You've got to be constantly changing it up. Otherwise, they don't want to look at you. And I have a few clients who have been coming to me now for a few years, and they know all my noises. And my own dog, it is sometimes impossible to get her to look at me without using a treat because she doesn't care about the noises. So toys, tennis balls, for cats and dogs, a feather wand. The little gray kitten standing up, all you do is put a feather wand in front of them and you'll get them to stand up and play with it and you get really great expressions. Again, you've got to be really, really quick and you get really used to learning how to have a toy in one hand and the camera in the other. And lastly, treats. Treats truly are like a last resort when you're shooting. You want to make sure that you have small pieces. You don't want a big, huge piece of food because then it's going to take them longer to chew it. And you don't want anything that's like milk bones. You don't want things that are going to crumble because then you end up with crumbs on the dog. You have crumbs on the background. It's more stuff that you have to edit out or grab a grab a lint roller and lint roll it up. And stinky treats, the reason I say that, I have done, like I said, I work with dogs who are blind and who are deaf. So if you have a smell on your hand, they are more likely to follow that smell back towards the camera. Okay. Yeah, Mario, working with older dogs, that's a great idea because they can't see well. So I use that stink. Sometimes they can't hear very well. So I'm pretty close to them. And again, I find ways to get their attention, or I kind of move to where they're looking. But again, older dogs too, you've got to be careful about moving them because they usually have very sensitive spots. So the typical poses that you have when working with dogs: sitting. With sitting poses, the one in the middle is kind of an example I put in there intentionally. I try and make it so that especially with male dogs, their leg is more covering the private area, so we don't have that up the skirt shot. Oh, sorry, Tracy, I forgot to mention trigger words. Go for a walk, or treat, or sometimes they say, I want to get in the car. So little things that always get those ears to perk up. And crazily, that's one of the things that I do ask my clients. I had a client who, she would actually say to her dogs, want to fold laundry? And they would get all excited. So yeah, like snack time, they all have different words. So again, knowing your client, knowing the dog, you're gonna find some crazy, crazy trigger words. Another go-to pose is just standing. And instead of putting the dog there, I usually lead the dog. So I'll have them follow me either with a toy, sometimes a treat, to get them into the spot that I want them. Because if you've ever worked with your own dog and you're trying to keep them somewhere, they don't want to stay. But if you're leading them somewhere and then you're giving them positive reinforcement, they're more likely to stay in that spot or go back to that spot. So laying down. And that middle one is not posed. They are just good buddies. With lying down, if they don't know lie down, you can, from a sit, you can kind of take a treat and bring it straight down and then kind of push it towards their chest. And that'll automatically get them to kind of go down into that pose. Cats are usually wanting to be more in a lie down position because they like to be smaller. So that one's easy for cats. Oh, somehow I'm in the top here. Paws up. Paws up are always really, really cute. It's a great way to work in different props. You get them to sit up just a little bit. It helps to raise them so you don't have them looking more flat, like in a lying down position. And of course, close-ups. We know those eyes are the windows to the soul, so you want to make sure that you really are capturing that expression in those eyes. Just a quick note, the top picture of the 3 greyhounds. I do a lot of groups in my studio, and sometimes they don't all want to cooperate together, so I make sure to take individuals, and that picture is a composite of 3 individual dogs all put together. Yeah, Stephanie, sometimes you can't get them that close, so you kind of plan for it. And then another fun shot is the over the shoulder, and this is where an assistant really comes in handy, because you can have the assistant or the pet parent standing to the side, so they're looking at them, and then I'll either have them toss a treat or a toy, or I'll make a noise, so they quickly look over their shoulder at me. Those are really more the main poses that I use. And I try to get a variety of them within the session. Let's see. Yeah, Stephanie, yes, the larger the dog, the more space they're going to take up and the more space they want. They don't want to stay all together. So I have another slide coming up where I did just that. I had to composite them both together because they wouldn't have fit. So my clients, this kind of helps you to see a lot of some of my more theme sessions. Most of my clients are coming to me for either holidays or for their own special occasions, so birthdays, family pictures. So I do a lot of fun prop type sets. That also helps me get clients who come back all the time, because for the most part, pet sessions, you're going to get them as a puppy, sometimes in a family session, and then towards the end of their life. So with the way that I structure my business, I do a lot of these fun sessions so that people are coming just to have the fun experiences. So we do birthday sessions. I do a lot of spring and Easter sessions. In my front yard, we do plant sunflowers. So we kind of do a sunflower theme, late spring, early summer. And again, you see those paws up poses, and we're kind of covering anything that we don't want to see. We do Valentine's Day sessions. There's another kitty. Again, cats love to sit on things. So if you get them comfortable to where they're sitting and get their attention, then they don't really see the strobes. So it's more distraction. So the golden retrievers, they are sisters. The one is actually, at that point, I think she was a 6-month-old puppy, and her sister Brooke did not like to be close together to her. So I took those two individual and put that together as one, and really you cannot tell. So see, magic of editing in Photoshop. And just a variety of some of the options that we have when we do things in the studio. During COVID, at Christmas time, I wanted to make sure we were able to do something outside. So this past year, I built this whole entire red wall scene, and now we've been able to transition it to do pretty much any everyday photos, Valentine's Day. I've even recently done for a senior portrait, kind of a UGA look. So I really want people to think outside of the box when you're looking at areas. So you can look at a brick wall, you can look at just a red, a blue, or any color wall that might be in your area, and have a lot of fun looking at what you can do with that. Tracey, sometimes I'll set the cats on the box. Sometimes they actually want to be on it. I'll put treats up there and then they'll climb up there. And my big holiday, of course, is Christmas. The picture of all those dogs is not composited. They are all sitting right there, and that was one take. So there are no head swaps or anything. Every year for Christmas, I decorate my studio differently. Last year we did Santa's workshop, and we did have Santa come in for a couple days. Main thing, if you are working with somebody who wants to be Santa, make sure that they like animals, that they're comfortable holding animals. Because you can get some really, really great expressions with Santa and pets. And then I do a lot of things on location where we don't have to have Santa, and it doesn't have to so much look really, really Christmassy. The year before, I did a blue Christmas scene. Red and green doesn't always go really great with people's homes, so I want to look at things that are a little bit more neutral. And I also try and shoot so that we're not looking directly at the scene all the time, that we're capturing little bits of it, but it's focusing really on the pet. And with my scenes, because I have a variety of sizes of animals, I do make sure that I'm using all different kinds of props. And look for props in unexpected places. This sleigh has been wonderful to use, and it is actually a gift holder that I got at TJ Maxx. So. And the picture with, these again are all my children up in the corner. This was our Christmas card, and it was done as a composite. I actually, so that I don't stress them all out, I will take a few images at a time. So I think I did 1 to 2 of them together and then just composited them as one image. And Christmas pictures can be very simple. A box, a flower, the stack of boxes. So it doesn't have to be something elaborate to get really great pet pictures. And then lastly, I do all kinds of crazy stuff. When we brought this puppy, the lady had this puppy earlier this year, and I'm like, let's do something fun for New Year's, because she was actually going to announce it in a New Year's card. So we stuck him in this little vase that I had. I love Mardi Gras. We did a fun Mardi Gras thing. And then I have clients who come to me who actually have pet businesses. So the top one, we're showcasing items that she carries. So of course, in that one, we want the harness to be in the picture. We want the leash and everything else. So kind of a quick recap. Safety is really, really important. Make sure to kind of be aware of your surroundings wherever you are. You don't want to get a dog tangled up. You don't want to trip. I have tripped many times when I've been outside. Kind of get to know the pet, let it get to know you, watch for stress signs, take breaks if you need to, but overall make sure that you're having fun. Have a wrangler, have a helper. It doesn't hurt to have an extra set of hands, somebody to control the leash, somebody who again can assist you with posing and getting attention. Always, always, always stay calm, be patient, work quickly, but don't rush. Pay attention to your lightings and your settings. This picture in particular, the sun was coming kind of in and out, and with Butter being so fair and me having to constantly get her attention and keep her attention, I had to shoot this image probably 6 or 7 times because I was just blowing her face out. So be aware of watching the settings. Don't just get kind of in your own head and just watching the pet. There is so many little details that you have to kind of remember when you're working with animals. Pose and compose, so there's minimal retouching. Like I said, there was just a lot going on in this image that would have been a nightmare had I not caught it. Again, make lots of noises, treats, toys, things to keep attention. So what else does everybody want to know?
Well, that was wonderful, Tracey, and so many things I never even thought of. You know, just off the charts.
Yeah, if I could interrupt. Yeah, Tracey, that the dog and the cat just kind of lounging over each other was just incredible. That's fantastic.
So that one shot,
you just have to, you've got to be watching for it, because little things like that happen in a second and then it's gone.
Yeah, tomorrow I'm going to try for maybe a chipmunk and a squirrel. I'm going to see if they'll do that.
Here is my contact information too, so it's all right up there.
Okay. Yeah, that's great.
I was going to ask, what do you enjoy most about your work? And then also, can you mention something about how you price things a little bit?
Of course, of course. I'm going to actually stop sharing the screen so I can see everybody. Okay. Well, for me, every single day is different. I get to have puppy kisses and kitty kisses and just great times. I can never say I have a bad day at work, which I did when I worked with children some days. And my typical session is anywhere from $300 to $600 or $700, depending on what we're putting up in their home. If this is more, what I find with pet parents, these pictures are only for them. We are not giving these to friends, family. This is a personal thing, very much like boudoir photography. So they are going to have this, and it's going to be somewhere where they enjoy it. So I do a lot of albums. I do a lot of 8x10s, 5x7s. So in that range, I'm usually more at the $300 to $400, and that's about typical. Now, I've had much higher sales when we go into people who want to do wall portraits in their home, or if we're doing family pictures with their pets. But that's kind of a ballpark.
Mm-hmm. How many pictures will you take typically during a session?
During a session, I will take probably about 80 to 90. And in a typical session, I will show between 20 and 30, depending on how many pets are in the session. Being in this industry for so long, people get fatigued really quick looking at images. So I try not to overshoot and really show them the best expressions. If something is really, really close, I'll pick the one that looks better.
And you use Lightroom to rate?
I use Photoshop. I do not use Lightroom. I have never been a Lightroom person, so strictly Photoshop. Photoshop and Bridge.
Photoshop and Bridge. Okay, Bridge.
You mentioned that one difference between shooting children and pets is that the ones with the pets would only keep them for themselves rather than, you know, share a lot. What are some other differences? You said you kind of prefer shooting the pets over kids. What are some of the differences between shoots?
Since I did children and families for really 11 years, one of the things that I noticed a lot was the parents. The parents are very, very different with pets than they are with their children. And a lot of that goes down to, these are either people who don't have kids yet, or these are people who are more empty nesters and their kids are now, or their pets are now their children. So they don't tend to be as stressed. They, again, money-wise, they spend a little bit more on their pets. Children, photography was always for kids because you're documenting. If you're doing pictures of your pets, again, this is for you. It's not for the pets. You're not going to give these to your pets. And our pets are with us for such a short time, unfortunately. So many people just want that for that memory. I've had a lot of clients who come to me with their second or third pet and they say, oh, I wish I would have done this with my other pets. And I do have people who bring somebody else's pet in and they do it as a gift. So I've had grandchildren bring in their grandparents' dog or cat, and we've done pictures with the kids as well as just the pets. Let's see. And yeah, children, again, it's just working with children and their parents, it's just a little bit different genre.
Tracey, how do you deliver your images to your clients? Do you give them digital files, prints, canvases, or?
I do in-person sales. So they actually come to my studio and we do a whole in-person slide presentation, and then they purchase products. So they usually will purchase, again, prints, canvases, albums. I do offer a digital app, but I don't usually sell just my digital files. These are just like a slideshow app that they can have on their phone and share on Facebook and things like that. But again, for the most part, yes, they're sharing some of these so friends can see them, but it is more for them.
Okay, thanks.
Tracey, for the outfits that you have them wear, do you edit them in, or are they already like the ones with all the hats? Like, how do you keep cats with hats or dogs with hats on? Or mine, like, as soon as they have them on, they like try to knock them off.
They are not photoshopped in. I do. For the most part, I do not put a lot of clothes on my own pets unless it's for a holiday. So what you did see there, I usually have my assistant next to them, kind of keeping something in place really quick. And in some of those pictures, there is a hand that's actually holding something in place, and I'll just take it out in post. But my dog hates having any type of outfit or hat on. It's usually if I can get a bow on her neck, that's about it.
Well, thank you, Tracey. Thank you very much. That was wonderful. Goodbye, Tracey. I'll see you soon. And goodbye, everyone. Okay. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Tracey, where is your studio?
I am in Auburn, so not Alabama. I'm in Auburn, Georgia. So I'm between Decula and Winder off of 316.
And you used to be in Snellville.
I worked at the studio in Snell. I had a studio that I worked at in Snellville.
Okay.
What percent of the time are you on location in someone else's home versus your own studio?
It's less now because I have outdoor space. I've been in my current location now for 3 years. When I first opened my old studio, I was in a retail space. So in that space, we did have to go more to other people's homes or park locations to get outdoor sessions. So now I would say it's only about 20% of the time that I go to somebody else's home. COVID has made this a little bit crazy, but a lot of my clients I have met at pet events. So I do Woofstock, which is in Suwanee in the spring, and then they're in Roswell in the summer. So that's an on location that I do. I also do the Atlanta Pet Expo, which is in the Gwinnett Fairgrounds. I'm part of a lot of local rescue groups who have their own little small pet events. So I've done Pooches in the Park, Paws in the Park. So I do end up going to places where I have to be out of my studio, but again, then it's more, I'm controlling this where I'm at. And again, with COVID, we have not done really any of those in the past year.
Have you ever had anybody come to you to do a session that you had to turn down?
Never. I'm very lucky. I've never had a session that I haven't gotten images.
But I meant where they want you to do something that's in a style that's not your style, or with an animal that you don't work with.
For the most part, no. Now there have been people who I've said, and it more comes down to price. In my pre-consultation, we'll discuss some of those things. And if they're not a right fit, then I usually just say, I don't think that I'm the photographer that you're looking for. But again, that's happened very, very rarely.
You're lucky.
Well, and again, because of where I kind of am at a price point, people who don't want to spend a certain amount aren't going to consider me.
So it sounds like really your reputation is really your primary asset, that you go by word of mouth and all these different events and places that you go, but that it took a while to build up your reputation and your, I guess, your base of contacts. I know you got some phenomenal contacts, mentors, and you mentor people as well. And I guess my question is, as far as your developing your reputation, how long did it really take you to, and I don't know if that's really the question, but.
It is, well, I understand where you're going. It is still developing. If I talk to my mentors, their price points right now are in the thousands. They won't take a client who isn't going to spend at least $1,000. Now, if I was in downtown Atlanta, I would probably have that as my minimum order. But where I am, that's not where a lot of my clients are. And again, I don't want to turn away people because I understand how much our pets mean to us. And I would rather them come to me 2 or 3 times, 3 or 4 times, and spend $300, $400, $500 than have a client who comes to me one time and spends $3,000 or $4,000. And again, I have a lot of other pet photographers. I'm part of a very large pet photography group. I guess I should, through Professional Photographers of America, we have, kind of like your group, we have a just animal photography group. And so we kind of compare notes. And one of the things that we are seeing is if people spend that high dollar amount, they will probably only come and do pet photography one time. So it's unlike children where you're going to keep seeing the same child as they're growing up. You're not going to see that as much with pets. So for me, my clientele and building that trust and the love of their pets speaks volumes. I have a couple clients right now when they start to pull in the driveway, their pets get all excited because they know where they are. So it's, and in that same vein, they get there and they want to play. It's not that they don't just want to work, they just want to come and cuddle on me. And I'm like, okay, we got to get some pictures first and then we can play some more. So they become extended family.
Can you talk just a little bit about HeartSpeak, just a bit?
Yes.
What that means to be a HeartSpeak artist member, and
HeartSpeak is an international agency, and any rescue group, humane society can go onto their website and find artists who they can collaborate with. HeartSpeak also gives photographers and rescue groups tools to help market all of their images. They create little fun overlays for different times of the year, since we have like Adoption Week or Rescue a Senior Pet Week. They'll create all of these fun overlays that they can actually use to help market their images. Kind of speaking on that, in a recent study that HeartSpeak did, 67% of people looking to find a pet based the pet that they purchased or they adopted on the images. So really good images help a pet get adopted so much quicker. It really, really goes a long way. I mean, if you're looking at a grainy cell phone picture of a dog in a cage at a humane society versus a dog that has been brought into the studio, you're going to see so many differences. I mean, just in the temperament alone, they change tenfold. They're not scared, they're not cowering. And so people see that picture and they have that emotional connection. And that is really what HeartSpeak is all about.
So if a photographer wanted to do that, to help and go volunteer to do those, I'm assuming that's a volunteer.
It's actually a fee to help the organization. I paid $50 to be a member of it. And actually the 3 rescues that I worked for had nothing, they weren't involved with HeartSpeak at all. The fun fact about HeartSpeak is if you are with a rescue and you need help, they will come out and they will actually train you on doing photography. So they'll train people within your organization as well. And they do a whole entire presentation just on how important it is to get good pictures and work on posing, just like I kind of did in this seminar. They'll go through that with a rescue group.
So would you just contact, like, let's say I wanted to do that, would I just contact Humane Society or Fur Kids or one of those shelters and say, how can I help?
Yes, most rescues are always looking for somebody to do photography for them. So if you call and you talk with their director, usually they'll let you know. A lot of the rescues around here are working with photographers. I've actually done some things with Fur Kids and they have a really good staff who does photography. What's the other one downtown? There's a really, really big one downtown.
Angels.
Angels Among Us, yes. And they have a great staff, but they're always looking for people who can help provide great pictures. Instead of some of the big groups, look to small rescues in your area because those are the ones who usually don't have a great photographer to work with. The ones that I work with here all the time are Dirt Road Doggies Rescue, Snap To It, which is cats. And then I work with Gwinnett Humane Society. So not animal control, but the Humane Society. Anybody else?
Well, I think we've come to the end of our questions. Anybody else have any questions for Tracey?
I think, what was your craziest animal so far? Like, did anyone bring out an alpaca or something, or a giraffe? Something crazy.
I've done goats. I actually have a friend who had goats, and I actually approached him because I wanted to use them for an ad that I was doing. But I've had snakes. I've had people who've brought me snakes. A chinchilla. I guess the hardest animal that I have photographed so far was a young pit bull puppy who was deaf and partially blind. So that one was a challenge because he just didn't know what was going on. And of course, I can't use my sounds to get his attention. So his attention span was very, very short. And that's usually the craziest one. When people say, my dog isn't going to sit still, I say, it cannot be as crazy as this one was.
Did you have trouble getting expressions out of the snakes?
Some animals you just don't get expressions from. You just wait until they do some really fun things, like with snakes, tongue flicks. The picture you saw at the beginning with the betta fish, fish don't face the camera. You just got to wait until they swim around to the right angle. And I have done a picture of a little boy holding a goldfish bowl. So that was kind of the same thing. You had to make sure that you waited for both the person and the fish to be at the right angle. And I've done some very interesting family groups. I had a family come in and they had three dogs, 2 cats, and a guinea pig. So getting everybody to kind of look is key. And I usually tell the people, you guys just have to keep looking at me and I'm going to work with the animals. And once I start making all the crazy sounds, they just look at me and laugh anyway.
Well, thank you for your presentation. Very inspiring, very informative. Thank you.
Well, you're welcome. I hope it all helps you guys go out and get some great pictures of animals.
Thank you so much.
And I think for one of your editing things, you need an animal picture that you can all edit and make sure that there's leashes and other crazy stuff in it.
That's a good idea.
That's a great idea.
That is
a great idea.
And to build on that, the theme for this next month is no surprise pet photography. So we'll be asking everybody to submit a pet photo, and those are going to be due on Saturday, July 3rd. So the Saturday of the July 4th weekend. And looking forward to the other programs we have coming up. We have in 2 weeks on June 22nd, Tuesday, it will be our monthly technical webinar. And that one this time is going to be presented by Bob Chadwick. And he's going to be doing it on the topic of focus modes and panning. You know, Bob does a lot of, car races and sports, and just, that could be used for any kind of fast moving object that you're trying, whether it's airplanes or birds or fast moving dogs, I suppose. So that's the next technical webinar. And then for our July club meeting, our main speaker is going to be Ludwig, and he's going to be talking on black and white photography. And you saw the woman that he did for the theme this time. He gave a little hint about the way he does black and white photography. So that is going to be very interesting for a deep dive on that. And I think that is all the announcements I have, and the time is wonderful. I can leave the line open if anybody has any last minute questions for Tracey. But other than that, I'll say good night, everybody. It was fantastic. And the time just went so fast. I can't believe it. And Mario, thank you so much for finding Tracey for us and bringing her to us. It's just a fantastic presentation, and it's a pleasure to meet you and get to know you. I'm going to look forward to following you. Do you have an Instagram? I guess you shared that, didn't you?
Yes. It's at Heartspot Portraits.
All right, everybody follow Tracey on Instagram and get out there and practice your pet photography. And if you don't have a pet, borrow somebody's pet. Like David, I know David doesn't have a pet, but he has a neighbor with a cat named Batman. And he did a great shot of Batman that he had printed on canvas, and it now hangs proudly over the mantle of that owner's home. So you could consider it as a gift for someone, but get out there and give it a shot, so to speak.
And
Thank you.
Somebody else's pet will behave better than your own pet usually does.
Thank you, Tracey, and thank you, Tracey.
Yeah.
Bye.
Thanks. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Good night.
We'll see you guys.
I know.
Good night.
Thank you. It's wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think
Thank you so
Stay on,
much,
Tracey, in case anybody has any other question.
Yeah.
I'm going to say good night. Good night, all.
Good night, Richard.
Thanks, Tracy. It was great.
You're welcome.
Just so much fun and such just high quality imagery. Do you spend a lot of time in post-processing? I mean, other than to remove leashes and things, are you adding catch lights or are you sharpening eyes? I mean, are you doing that kind of thing?
I have a pretty standard editing process. So I do have kind of a batch of edits that I run. I always enhance eyes, just like you were talking about at the beginning when you were doing your editing process. Yeah, there's little things I always do because pets' eyes can look very, very dull if you don't add a little bit of adjustment to them.
What's your typical go-to adjustment? Is it just sharpening, or do you ever change their eye color? Or
I don't usually change eye color. I'll enhance brown eyes, especially because some brown eyes will look very, very dark. So I actually have a company called Greater Than Gatsby. I love their action sets. So it's more brushes and tools that I actually use to help fix a few things. Topaz Labs has an action that I use all the time called Fur and Feathers. And it actually adds just a little bit more drama to fur and feathers.
But you don't use that on the eyes.
No, not on the eyes.
Well, what was the other app? Greater Than what?
Greater Than Gatsby. And just yesterday, they released a whole action set that's now specifically for pets. So it's really kind of showing where pet photography is now falling within the photography industry.
Do you ever shoot birds?
I do. I have a few friends who brought me parrots to shoot before. And unfortunately, because of COVID, I did not get to shoot last year at the bird fair. Gwinnett County Fairgrounds has a bird expo twice a year. And I actually had a booth planned to be there so that I would be able to start doing more pet photography or bird photography and getting that word out there.
So how do you keep the bird from just flying away?
The main thing you want to make sure is their wings are clipped. There was a quick picture that I had 2 parakeets. The woman brought those in for Santa pictures, never had taken them out of the cage, and did not have their wings clipped. So the first thing that we did was clip their wings. This was done at a pet store, so the woman who ran the bird area actually clipped their wings for us. But then again, just working with them very, very slowly. If you're working with somebody's parrot, if you have them bring a perch, or I have actually some sticks and things I use, you can just wiggle it a little bit to where you'll get their wings up. So you'll get different expressions from birds too, just based on knowing little tricks.
Mm-hmm.
And if you need a bird photographer to talk for you, I have a very good friend. She's on the board with GPPA, but that's really what she specializes in. She does more wild bird photography, and she does courses on that. So there are talks on that.
Okay, so not pet birds.
Not pet birds, just wild birds.
What's her name?
Lisa Hill.
Okay, and she's in the GPPA.
Yes. But Lisa Hill Photography, you can reach out to her.
Mm-hmm.
She just did a talk for our group. So it was a great presentation all on bird photography.
Good. Yeah, we have a lot of wildlife photographers in our group. So I'll take a look at her work.
She's got some beautiful pictures, and she's been posting a lot of an owl that lives in her yard now. She lives across from the botanical gardens, so she gets a lot of really nice birds in her area.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Tracy, for your time. And this has just been so much fun and very inspiring as well.
You're welcome. And do you guys know Eric Richards?
Mm-mm.
Eric actually lives in Peachtree Corners. He's been on the board for PPA. He's actually our school director for GPPA and was a past president of GPPA, but he lives right in your neck of the woods and is an incredible photographer. He has worked for Fox. He's worked for the Fox Theater. He's done things for the Atlanta Symphony Orchestra. He has been in the industry for years and years and years, and is just an incredible guy to have to speak for you since he's right there.
Yeah, well, maybe we can get him to come and be a member too.
Yes, he has Richard's studio, which is just right outside of Peachtree Corners.
Well, thank you for telling us that. Richard Studio.
Uh-huh.
All right.
And Eric and Dawn Richards, yes.
Eric and Dawn. Okay. Dawn, like Dawn, the sky Dawn.
Yes, that's
Okay.
his wife, and she helps. She's his assistant too.
Well, thank you. Get some good tips that way.
Oh, you're welcome.
Anybody else have anything?
Just such a big thank you, Tracey. That was so good. Thank you so much for taking the time and putting it all together.
Oh, you are so
You
welcome.
always tell, people are at the top of their game, and it really showed. Thank you so much.
Well, anytime you need a speaker, even if it's not me, I can probably help you find somebody too. So
Okay.
reach out.
on other topics besides pet photography, you mean?
Yes. Yep. Again, because I'm the executive director with GPPA, I know many people, and like you, we have speakers come in as well. So.
Mm-hmm. Good.
And
Well,
some
we're
of them are just wanting the experience because through PPA, they have to go and speak places so that they're getting their degrees so that they can become a master craftsman, master artist.
Well, we have pretty much of our programming is set for this year, but pretty soon we'll be starting to set it up for next year as well.
I know it's a never-ending process.
That's right. All right. Well, thank you again, everybody.
Thank you.
Tracey Rice, before you go, I have some club questions that I'd like
Okay,
to.
I'll hang on.
I'm gonna sign out. You guys have
Okay.
a good night.
Bye.
Bye. Good night.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Anna.
Bye.